The United States is in total control of the Strait of Hormuz and in total control of this war. And don't worry, everything is fine. Forget about the price of oil. Forget about the absence of jet fuel. None of that stuff matters. We're going to get a deal that we want. And the Iranian side will, well, anyway, you would think that if you were reading the social media post of President Trump. And in fact, if you look at some of the other people who were on him and who he's retweeting out late recently, or retruthing, as he calls it there's going to be some really alarming things, because there is no truth to that straight claim that we're in total control of the strait, which we're going to get to in a second. Try to figure out fact from fiction here and just what in the heck is going on. We have back with us again today Alastair Crooke, a former British diplomat and MI6 officer with decades of experience in the Middle East and European security affairs. He also served as a senior advisor to the European Union and is the founder of the Conflicts Forum, which we look at a lot, which you can find on Substack. Alastair, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be with you.
Listen, let's just start off with this claim, because this is literally minutes ago. You said it's 9:14 a.m., so that's 45 minutes ago. Iran is having a very hard time figuring out who their leader is. They just don't know. The infighting between the hardliners, who have been losing badly on the battlefield, and the moderates, who are not very moderate at all, but gaining respect, is crazy. We have total control of the Strait of Hormuz. No ship can enter or leave without the approval of the United States Navy. It is sealed up tight until such time as Iran is able to make a deal. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I mean, let's look at the first part of that, the highlighted part there. Do we have control of the Strait of Hormuz?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, there are tankers plying the freights regularly. I don't know whether it is either that the US Navy hasn't enough ships, or alternatively, which I think is actually more likely, they are quite reluctant to get close to the Hormuz or to the Persian coast, because we've seen before what has happened to the carrier and its escorts. They've been pushed right back by drones and by anti-ship missiles that were fired to a distance of several hundred miles away from the coastline, because they don't want to be attacked and sunk. Well, I mean, any naval ship of the United States that goes too close to the Hormuz Straits, I mean, risks. They are risking a watery grave, and I'm not so enthusiastic to see that. So that's why I think they have why there's so many tankers passing through. Iranian tankers are passing through with their oil, full of oil en route. And other ships are coming into Hormuz, Iranian ships. I think it's in the last few days, something like 30 have traversed. This is a question of whether it is open or whether it is shut. I mean, people ask me all the time, and I keep saying it's both, because actually it is both shut to certain types of vessels, vessels that belong to antagonists of Iran, and open to Iran vessels, and also to those who are prepared to pay the fee and to come to terms with Iran and pay for their cargoes in Wuhan. And they are passing regularly, and increasing numbers of states are asking for permission or trying to establish a relationship with Iran, because they want to get their vessels out of the straits. So, I mean, it's happening. A lot of Asian countries, Japan, South Korea, and European countries too, have been in touch. France has been in touch, trying to get its vessels out. So, I mean, there's a change taking place. More and more people are beginning to understand that if you want to conduct trade in oil, the best thing is to talk to the Iranians and come to some sort of terms with them.
And that's not exactly what we're trying to get accomplished right there. Everything hinges on getting this thing opened up. The only way you're going to really get it opened up, because you have the dueling blockades, which, as you just pointed out there, and this report from Dropsite News talks about 34. This was as of yesterday morning. 34 Iran-linked tankers and gas carriers had bypassed the blockade line. But until you get the dueling blockades off, there's not going to be the normal flow, which was between 100 and 130 ships per day in normal times. And obviously, we're suffering a lot from that. More on that in a second. But let's go back to what we can do to get to there, because President Trump here repeats something that has been talked about a lot here of late, that Iran is having a hard time figuring out who their leader is. And he's talking about hardliners and moderates, and that they don't even know what they're doing. How do you see that? First of all, is there a debate and some kind of an alarming conflict between so-called hardliners and moderates inside the Iranian government?
No, there isn't. And really, this is just propaganda that is based on a projection of the United States model, because you know better than anyone, the model for the United States has always been that the civilian echelon commands the military structure which operates below it. If you like, the civilian structure makes the final decision, the military implement it on the field. Well, that isn't the case in Iran. That may be the case in America, but it is not the case in Iran. In Iran, it is the supreme leader alone who is in charge, who has responsibility for military and security matters, not the government. The government, the civilian echelon, if you like, people like Arachi and Pezeshkian are responsible for the internal affairs of Iran, the good administration, economic, and the general welfare of the state internally. And what happens is that the overall decisions are made in the Supreme National Security Council on matters of security, military, and domestic affairs. And that answers to the Supreme Leader. And he usually appoints the head of it, who is answerable to him in that way. And on that, in the Supreme National Security, there is a small, if you like, component. This came out of this 12-day war, in that they realized that in military, in war, you have to have someone who can make quick decisions. You can't just wait while you gather together everybody around a cabinet table and sort of talk it all over. People who have no experience in military and people who do have experience in military affairs. So they've cut out all that down to a small, if you like, working group, which contains the necessary technical and military expertise under the leadership of Ghalibaf, and ultimately the leadership of the supreme leader. And that's real. I mean, don't all this propaganda that you're hearing, forget it. I mean, he is the leader and directly involved. And Ghalibaf works closely to this leadership. So that's what happens. It's not like, if you like, it's not the sense, you know, the IRGC are pushing out the civilian cadre from the decision making. It is the IRGC who make the decisions when Iran is in a state of war through the smaller operational committee, subject to the supreme leader. There isn't a war because really the civilian element, if you like, that part of the government, as I say, have no standing under the Constitution to demand anything from the IRGC. They can go and talk in the Supreme National Security Council. We have similar sort of structures in the West, but it's inverted. There it is mostly, you know, the civilian and the others are subordinate. the structure of the IRGC and the security and the supreme leader are in the lead, and the civilians are really only responsible for such things as economic affairs. They are not, according to the Constitution, allowed to be involved. The fact that Arachi is negotiating is by consent of the Supreme National Security Council, not because he is the foreign minister in the way in which, you have a Secretary of State. It's not like that. So there's a great confusion about this, but there are no divisions, and all this story about big divisions and there are argument is just nonsense. The Arachi works perfectly well with Kalibaf. Kalibaf is the lead negotiator now. They operate through consensus within the Security Council and with the approval of the Supreme Leader.
And whether it's Arakchi or Ghalibaf or any things that have been attributed to the Supreme Leader through his X account or any of the other statements, do you see anything that would indicate to you an uncertainty about what the Iranian objectives are, what they even want to accomplish diplomatically?
No uncertainty whatsoever. I mean, if you want to refresh your memory, just go and look at the 10-point plan. I mean, they set it out exactly what is required. They want various preconditions, such as the return of the frozen assets. They want the lifting of sanctions. And all the 10-point plans are set out. So the talk that they have to get it together before we can talk to them. That was what they provided through the mediation of Pakistan to the Trump team before Islamabad, and Trump said this was a reasonable basis for discussion. That's what he said himself about that, having received the 10-point plan. So, there's really no, if you like, confusion in Iran about, what are the aims? The aims are set out in the 10-point plan, which incidentally was seen by the Supreme Leader. He discussed it, he amended a few of the details, and then put his imprimatur on it. So it reflects a concerted, all-of-government position, that the 10 points. It's not one side, another side, a bit of this. It is a concerted position that has been discussed, has gone through the process, and it has emerged as these 10 points are the principles in which Iran is pursuing in these talks. That's it. Full stop.
And now that to even get to the negotiating position on those points, we have the issue of these dueling blockades. So the Iranians have had control of theirs since the war began, and then Trump added his later on. And now then some of the Iranian diplomats are saying that we will not return to negotiations until the lifting of the U.S. siege. We will not negotiate under threat, and we will not even go to Islamabad until the siege, what they call the blockade, is lifted. So that seems to have set a pretty high standard. Do you think that they'll stick with that they won't even talk to us until Trump opens up the blockade?
I think that's so, yes. But because it's not a dueling blockade. The blockade, as you've just pointed out, for Iranian tankers and Iranian vessels, is not a total blockade at all. I mean, I've seen all these reports about, Iran is being deprived of oil, its economy is collapsing as a consequence. This is just sheer nonsense. It's getting its oil out. It has various means for getting its oil out. I mean, it's not just the Hormuz, don't forget. They have overland ability to export their oil, and they have, if you like, a loading site out of Hormuz. Jasser. It doesn't have a big throughput, but it has, I think, 350,000 barrels a day or something. So, those vessels that you just said had brought in probably close to $1 billion. In this period of the war, Iran has been earning double the revenue that it was earning even in the best months of the years previously. It is very well endowed with money. Furthermore, it has approximately, before the war started, it put some 200 million barrels of oil at sea on vessels. And it's sold about half of those, I believe. I don't have the figures, of course, but it's about half, I think. So they've got about 100 million barrels still, which they can sell to customers and take revenue. And the revenues are passing, and they're not passing through either through the Gulf, either through UAE financial structures, which of course would be leaked immediately to the Americans. They pass directly at the point of sales and through various means, of which I am not familiar, but I know are happening at the point of sale. And so the money is passing in Juan and necessary. And we had the UAE just a few days ago. The UAE made a representation to America and said, look, I mean, we're running out of dollars. We haven't got, there are no dollars coming in and we're running out of dollars. And this is to warn you that if you don't do some sort of swap agreement or give us dollars, we're going to have to start selling treasuries and buying yuan in order to try and restore some sort of revenue to the UAE. So things are changing, and states are beginning to come face to face with reality that the Hormuz is controlled by Iran, and that's not likely to change. It's not likely to change because we can't see any feasible military way in which it can be changed that would not involve the United States enduring large-scale, very painful casualties.
So that then leads us to the question of where can this go in the near term, because there's already issues in Asia with rationing of fuel, in Europe with airlines cutting. KLM is cutting hundreds of flights. I think it was Lufthansa has cut like 20,000 flights or something like that because of an insufficient amount of jet fuel. That continues to be a problem. In fact, let me show you this chart right here. This is what has happened since this war started. And you see that upper left-hand corner there. If people who may not be able to read the title here, that's jet fuel. And because of the shutdown of the strait, it's going really far south, way below the recent volumes. And by the way, that 2017 to 2025 average is kind of that big, the line in the middle. And you see it's way, way, way below even the worst of the last 8 years prior to this. And then you see petrol, gasoline in the upper right-hand corner, diesel in the lower left-hand corner, and then crude oil itself is being dropped down to considerably lower level from where it started off here. So this seems to be like something of a ticking time bomb that's putting pressure primarily on the United States to get the blockade lifted, to get things coming, to get some kind of a deal so that both sides drop their barriers. Trump talking like he did here that, hey, we have total control over the straits, and until we get the deal we want, we're not going to do anything different. But whose side is time on here? We'll just ask that question first.
Well, it's obvious. It's on Iran's side completely because supply lines, I mean, as you rightly say, although Iran has been able to export its oil during this period, and has been receiving revenues bigger than they expected from the oil sales. Of course, it has taken about 13 million barrels of oil out of the market every day. And America cannot replace that. It can probably, its export capacity at the moment, I believe, is about 500,000 barrels a day. Very big shortfall on 13 million. And so what we're seeing now is the beginning. There is, if you like, the vibrations are there. We can see supply lines are beginning to crumble, and very shortly they will collapse. I mean, we will see it physically. We will experience it. All of us will experience it. In that there will soon be shortages of aviation fuel, maybe gasoline at the stations for the car, food maybe starting, not all together, but you will notice some absences. You won't get aluminium foil, and all these sort of things will start. And then it will get serious, because in about 2 weeks, the supply lines will break. I mean, all the economists who follow these things know, because you get to a point in your manufacturing, if the crucial component is not available, you have to shut down the manufacturing. And this is what's happening. Look at American farmers. They are going bankrupt. They say they can't afford to continue in production because the diesel for their tractors has gone up so much. They can't get fertilizer. If they can get fertilizer, they have to pay very much more for it. So, I mean, it is very clear. And at the same time, I mean, I would say, you know, from the Iran's point of view, it's quite happy for Trump to continue with his blockade. He's shooting himself in the foot, really. It's a useful tool, negotiating tool for Iran. But actually, in economic terms, within a couple of months, the pain for Europe and the United States and the world is going to increase dramatically. If you ask what is the difference, I would say the amount of pain for Iran from the blockade by Trump of Hormuz is minimal compared to the acceleration of pain which is about to happen to the world markets, unless something is done.
And getting that open, then, it's if President Trump wants to be kind of boisterous, like, yeah, I'm going to keep control of this until they let it go. Well, there's a complication. He had a second Truth Social just before we went on this morning, where he said, I've ordered the United States Navy to shoot and kill any boat, small boats though they may be, that is putting mines in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. There is no hesitation. Additionally, our minesweepers are cleaning the strait right now. I'm hereby ordering that activity to continue, but at a tripled level. Couple of problems with that. Number one, we aren't putting any minesweepers in there because, as you pointed out, if they did get into that Gulf, they're going to get in a shooting gallery. And there have been apparently some underwater drones, but I'm told from some people who understand how all that works, that's minuscule combined to what those things can do. They can't clear it out, and there are increasing reports that Iran is additional, not free from what they did at the beginning, but what they're doing now is putting more mines to limit the amount of navigable space through the strait, to give them even more control over it and make it nearly impossible, even once this is over, to clear it out. According to the Washington Post yesterday, it could take up to 6 months to clear all this stuff out if it's a passive environment and everybody's okay with it. So it sounds to me like there's something built in that there's going to be extended shortfalls no matter what political decisions are made. What are the implications of that?
Well, as I say, more pain. More pain. I mean, it's going to be quite catastrophic to the supply lines in about 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, I know we don't see it at the moment. We don't feel it, perhaps, because nothing has really occurred. But when you go and you find you can't fill up your car, your vehicle with gasoline, it's a wake-up call. No, it's clearly going to get much worse. I mean, all the things about mines, it's just another. First of all, there are no demining boats of the United States in Hormuz. They would have been sunk long ago. The Iranian mines, I'm not a military expert, but I understand these are mines that are controlled remotely. So you can raise a mine or you can lower it. They have control. The mines are not laid by ships, vessels necessarily. There are tunnels under the Hormuz out of which high-speed torpedoes can come out, ones that have batteries and can loiter for 4 days, up to 4 days in the Hormuz, and then use AI to select a target and destroy it. So I don't think I don't. I first of all, I think the Iranians are pretty smart, and if they've laid mines, they may say, well, you know, they could be anywhere. But that's them playing their psychological war. Both sides do that. So I don't think it will necessarily be for long. But I mean, turn to the other side of the equation. What about the Gulf countries? They are not getting any of their vessels out at the moment, partly because under the Iranian protocols, they're classified as adversaries because they provide, if you like, facilities and support for the United States bases on their states or their sheikdoms. So they are suffering. And so it's all of these other elements, the helium, the nitrogen, the urea for fertilizer, gallium, all of these sort of special items that are not passing through the straits, which will break the supply lines in due course. So, I mean, you know, from the Iranian point of view, I imagine they're not saying it in these terms. I am. But I mean, really, it seems more that Trump is shooting himself in the foot with this so-called blockade of the blockade, because the things that are getting blockaded, really, more than anything, is as I say, other nations' tankers and supply lines. The Iranian ones are passing through. Exactly in what terms, as I said to begin with, I'm not sure whether there are just not enough American naval vessels, but the American naval vessels are pushed far back because they don't want to meet an anti-ship missile if they come too close. So I don't know if they get through the spaces, or maybe the naval captains don't want to go too close either because they don't want to end up on the bottom of the sea either.
And let me ask you a question on this naval issue, because there have been reports here in just the last few days where the United States has boarded other ships in the Indo-PACOM area, not even in the Middle Eastern area, but in the Indian Ocean, I think is where some of them have been. Some of which were, at least one of which I saw, was supposed to be heading to China. What impact does that have on the war? Does that put pressure on Iran to do something? Does that put pressure on China to do something, to put pressure on Iran? What do you make of that?
I think that was an extraordinary step because it's really turned the tanker war into a global war. I mean, China can read the runes as well as anyone else, and it can see it. It was sort of hinted at in the national security statement about the need either to use tariffs or to squeeze China's energy supply lines, to coerce them into exporting less and consuming more at home. That was in the statement. And they understand that. So what are they seeing? Their supply lines are being squeezed in Venezuela. Cuba also is under blockade. Now Trump has ordered a blockade on Hormuz. And Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has said we're going to put sanctions, secondary sanctions, on Chinese banks and financial institutions that we find are, if you like, supporting Iran or being involved in receiving money from Iran, whether in yuan or whatever currency. And this, I mean, you know, is a major step, a huge step. It is attacking Chinese supply lines across the board. And we've seen this. And of course, Russia is aware of this too. I mean, everywhere you look, in order to try and get dominance over energy, the United States is sanctioning ships, boarding them, seizing them, whether it's in, you know, Russia has to put a naval vessel to escort tankers passing through the British Channel because Britain says it's going to seize any vessel. I mean, everyone calls them, these are sanctioned vessels. I have no idea. It seems that almost every vessel of any type now is said to be sanctioned vessel and therefore can be seized. And so Iran has started playing back and has taken two vessels. I think one, I think linked to Israel and another one linked to another. I can't remember. But they've taken those and they're now sitting offshore in Iran. They boarded them and they seized them in retribution for the seizing of an Iranian vessel earlier. So if the America wants to go down this route, good luck, but it will have a price to pay with China and probably with Russia too, because Russia, of course, wants these corridors and these passages open to export their oil. China wants to import it. Both of them have an interest in it not becoming a tanker war in which America is, if you like, trying to seize and sanction their tankers. So I think, I mean, this is on a par with, the tariff war, when Mr. Trump, in his Liberation Day, put it something like 155% tariffs on China. And what did China do? It responded with squeezing the rare earths and the special rare minerals and metals from the United States. And then eventually Washington backed down. And now the tariffs have been removed. And but they can go back on again at any point. And we know that really China has the leverage in terms of rare earths and indeed in many vital metals to modern technical engineering.
Well, it does seem that you're talking about diplomacy. We seem to be very short-sighted and not thinking through the second and third order effects, which you just talked about there, just right off the cuff. We'll see how they play out this time. There's a bigger issue, though, at stake here or at play in terms of diplomacy, of trying to get an event, an outcome that we want. Now, you saw President Trump saying, I've got control of the Strait of Hormuz, and I'm going to blow up any ships that do any kind of mine laying, et cetera. So he seems to be saying, I've got the cards, I've got the time. And this morning, one of the other things that he tweeted out or Truth Socialed out was he said here, very true. This is from Mark Thiessen in the Washington Post. Trump doesn't need a deal to get what he wants from Iran. And if you go to the article where that was from, let me bring that up here. A really important thing to show. Let's take a look at what that article actually says. And so what is it when he says that's really true? The title is Trump doesn't need a deal to get what he wants from Iran. And then he says the regime is running out of oil storage money and time. So he thinks this author here, Mark Thiessen, that it's Iran that's running out of time. Then he gets down here and says that Iran's goal is clearly to drag out negotiations as long as possible, believing the longer major combat operations are suspended, the less likely they are to resume. Do you think, first of all, that is the primary goal of Iran right now?
Not now. It's been from the outset. I mean, I've always said to you that, when they looked at what had happened in 2003 and American, if you like, actions against Saddam Hussein, it was always that America was on a short timeline. Massive aerial bombardment, decapitate the leadership, decapitate the command system, bang, shoot and scoot and out. And so the Iranians all along have said that the answer to short war is long war. We have to keep the war going and attrition, and we have to balance it. And therefore it is carefully, if you like, husbanded. So the more powerful missiles have not been used yet. They're waiting for the right moment. They expect this to be a long war. So they've been planning for it. And all that stuff about how, the oil wells will have to be closed down and it will, as I say, and I repeat, Iran is exporting enough oil. It's making more money now than it ever has before off of oil. And the people that are suffering is not Iran, but America's allies in the Gulf that are having to close down their oil wells and shut them. And it is a problem to reopen a closed well. It takes time, and sometimes there are technical problems in it. This is going to go on, even if you have the unlikely condition that there's an agreement or something and everything was stopped. The consequences, the second and third order consequences of what has already happened are still yet to come, and they are going to hurt. It's like that. It's not a simple case. Oh, he has the, if you like, the negotiation leverage. Trump does not have that leverage. Iran has the leverage. Iran has been winning this war. And if you think that I might be saying something that's exaggerated, we see in the Hebrew press in this term, people like David Bernardi, who is a military correspondent, says we've lost this conflict with Iran. The war is not coming to an end. They have the negotiating advantage. They have the enriched uranium. They have their missiles. We have not won this war at all. We are losing the war, which is why the Israelis are pressing Trump very hard. And this is clear from the Hebrew press today. The consensus around the leadership is that they must push for more war to restart the war. That's what Israel wants. So when you're talking about a solution, I mean, you have to think very carefully about what you're looking for. I mean, you could get possibly a solution, but then you would find that Iran emerges as a global economic power. If it stays with the control of Hormuz, over a year or two, it will be a global power. In economic terms, it will not only control 20% or so of oil, but 30% of fertilizer. It will control many essential components. It will be a big power. Or you have, and you try and continue, if there's an escalation militarily, then you will find that the Iranians will escalate pro forma in response. So this is where is the negotiations? What does he think he's going to do for a deal?
Well,
there's only one thing I can think.
I want to go back to that Washington Post story here because there was a couple of other really alarming, I'll just say, two alarming comments from that author here in the Washington Post. And again, this is not just some obscure writer. This is somebody that's in the Washington Post, one of the two major papers in America, and somebody that President Trump listens to a lot, Mark Thiessen. In that article, he writes, Trump needs to disabuse Iran of the notion that they can outlast him. He reportedly told Iran that it has 3 to 5 days to make a serious counteroffer. If it fails to do so, he should resume combat operations. And then he adds a very important caveat in that article, and then he repeated it in this clip on Fox News.
If there are two factions in Iran, one that wants a deal and one that doesn't want a deal, let's kill the ones that don't want a deal. If it's that simple, we've killed over 50 Iranian leaders so far. Let's go back. Let's end the ceasefire and finish the job. Admiral Cooper has taken out about 70 to 80% of the targets he was assigned. There's another 20 to 30% to be done. Let's finish that. Let's take out the leaders who don't want a deal, and then we threaten to destroy Karg Island if they don't give us the nuclear dust and bring them back to the table then.
Well, that's nice and simple. I mean, all you got to do is just kill the guys that don't want to make a deal and then just blow up their economic stuff until they give it. And then the problem will be solved. I mean, what's hard with that?
Well, it doesn't work and hasn't worked. If you remember, they tried that with Hezbollah. And what did they end up? They ended up with Hassan Nasrallah. I did a ceasefire in the Palestinian conflict. And had it all arranged, and I was instructed that I must inform the Israelis that it was about to go into effect. And I was rung up by the High Representative at 4 o'clock the next morning and said, "Have you read the news, Alastair?" And I said, "No." And he said, "The negotiator for Hamas has had a 1-ton bomb dropped on him, killing him and 13 of his family, and it's finished. Did it win anything? No, it didn't. It made it much harder. I think this comes back to a basically misunderstanding. And this is something I've written about, and this mechanistic power thinking of the West, that Iran is just another nation state and that it will, if we put enough pressure on it, it will give it. It isn't a nation state. It never was a nation state. It didn't want to be a nation state. It is a revolutionary state, and it is returning to being a revolutionary state again. Look at what's happening amongst the young in Iran. They're out every night waving their flags. There are parades going up and down with young women, all carrying their guns on their shoulders and all pledging their support to the IRGC and to the Supreme Leader and looking for a revolution. And when they are threatened, they go on the bridges. When they're threatened, they surround the power stations, ready to die on it if Trump goes ahead. You're dealing with a state that has, this is a revolutionary state that they have, energy and determination. It's extraordinary. I mean, but Iran has always had this, and its roots go back a long way. But it's not just, another autocratic nation state, and if we threaten them or offer them a bit more money or something, they'll buy into it. No, because it was founded on the values of opposing precisely this. It was founded on the values of opposing the nation state that was founded by the Shah, of opposing the secular structures that Kemal was implementing in Turkey. It had a series of values which the young are now embracing and pursuing. And it's very hard to break that. In fact, if there's anything I would say now, the mood on the street is actually for a much tougher attitude. I mean, I hear the mood on the street is saying, we don't understand, why doesn't the IRGC Navy just sink these American boats or who are forming this blockade? They should sink them. They can. We know they can. They should just do it. If they're going to go on, threatening us with this blockade, sink them. That's the attitude of ordinary young people in Iran often. So, I mean, the mood is hardening, not softening by all these threats. And by the way, the Iranians take very seriously that threat about the negotiating team. When they came back from Islamabad, they'd heard that there were threats. They got intelligence from other states that there was a likelihood that America or Israel would try and either bring down their plane, shoot down their plane, or that they would try and kill them on the route home. So they flew back in a different aircraft, They went not to Tehran, they went to Mashhad, and they went by train from Mashhad back to Tehran, precisely because they take seriously, this is, basically, I mean, since I've been doing, ceasefires over 20 more years in the Israeli context, the Israeli method of warfare has always been assassination and to kill your negotiator. I can't tell you, look, they killed Ismail Haniyeh, they tried to kill the Hamas negotiators. All of them have been attacked. So you have to take it very seriously, and they are taking it seriously. But it doesn't make them sort of weaker or readier to negotiate. On the contrary, it stiffens the sinews and makes them much tougher in their attitude. And this is visible on the streets. I mean, I'm not making this up. Look at the videos. Watch the videos of what happens every night in the streets, not just in Tehran, in Mashhad, across it is Fahan. You'll see every night for hours after midnight and 1, young people on the streets shouting and supporting the government.
And you know, you highlight, I think, one of 2 things that I want to look, and I know we're running low on time. One is that it's just not going to work. And again, I go back to this chart here. Those numbers are all going in the wrong direction. And every day that this goes on longer, and the strait stays closed, those numbers will keep dropping. It's going to have some profound effects. So if you say, listen to Mark Thiessen and say, yeah, let's go back to the military method, that's going to have, it's just not going to work. But I also want to look at it from, especially as a former diplomat yourself, and just the state of play. And I want to go back to that comment that he made there. This is Mark Thiessen in his ex post. And you see, this has been reposted by the President of the United States. He says if there are 2 factions in Iran, one that wants to deal and one that doesn't, let's just kill the ones who don't. Trying to adopt what you said the Israeli side has been using for a long time. But can international diplomacy work like this when you just have one side say, yeah, I want to have a diplomacy and talk to people? Because now then the only thing you're saying is you either do what we tell you or we'll kill you. Who's going to negotiate with us if that becomes our policy? I'd like you to talk the efficacy of that and then the morality of it.
Well, the efficacy is, I've said, the whole history of generally the Israeli dependency on assassinations to pursue it has always ended up with a harder liner coming into the frame as the new leadership. You take out the moderates, you don't get someone more moderate, you get someone hardline. That's been the whole history of it. It hasn't worked anywhere. I'd like to know if he's got a counterexample of where it has worked. The second thing is the morality of this. I think I don't have to say really very much about it. I just think that this sort of, we can kill anyone we want, wherever we want, without justification, without cause. If he's in favor of a deal, let's kill him. Let's then take on the hardliners. I mean, it's really repulsive.
And I mean, just we used to, I guess, bank on Western values. That's what we used to always say, especially during the Cold War. We have values in the West. We are rules-based order, dominated by the rule of law. No one is above the law, that kind of thing. And we'd point fingers at those despots who would just wanted to kill their way to whatever they wanted. But now then we've inverted that. And I mean, are you concerned? I'm obviously very concerned about this. Do you have any concerns that the Western world itself is moving in directions that is darker for us if we become comfortable with killing those that don't do what we want?
Yes. I mean, the whole gist really changed some years ago in the United States when it's become not so much trying to lift people up to the embrace of democracy and freedom and all those values that used to be proclaimed. It's now, people are evil. People are militarized against us. And it's all about harming them, trying to damage them, and to try and, if you like, destroy them. And so there's been a fundamental shift in that sort of whole paradigm, I believe, away from, the United States as a sort of a redemption power of someone of trying to produce, democracy and others. And now, all of these other people, everyone is now, Putin is a dictator. He's evil. Now the leadership in Iran is evil. Z, is corrupt and an enemy. I mean, all of it is now shifted into a sort of Manichaean light and dark process. Evil, we are the light, they are the darkness, and we have to destroy the darkness. But actually what is happening, as you just hinted, is actually we are entering the darkness, not actually they are entering the darkness. Iran is a country just like Russia, with values. It is a civilizational state. and those values in their civilization. We are the ones saying they have no values and that therefore we're free to destroy them.
Well, yeah, and that's just very different than the values I grew up with and believed were inherent in what we were doing. And I'm very disturbed and alarmed by where this could go. And we want to highlight it as we're doing here so that people are aware of maybe if it's possible to veer off of that path before we go down it, to make people aware of it, because carried to its natural conclusion, this could literally lead to a totalitarian state who doesn't value anyone's life as long as they disagree with them, even domestic. And that's what I'm worried about. Carried far enough, it could be even applying here. We don't want to see that, so we're calling it out as it is. And we thank you so much for coming on today and pointing this out. And going to, again, remind people to go to Conflicts Forum, because Alastair has so many great things to say, and he's constantly publishing updated information you just don't get anywhere else with all of your experience, both in the region and in diplomatic circles. So we encourage people to go see there. And thank you very much for coming on today.
Oh, it was always a pleasure to join you.
And we'll see you next time. And we will see you back actually a little over an hour from now, where we're going to have Matt Ho back with us today. It's been a little bit of time since we've had him, and he's always got a great ideas and things to talk about that also, that's one of the things we love about our channel. We put on people that with ideas you just don't see other places, but ideas you need. Iran, a proven world power. What does the future hold? We'll see you then on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. Don't forget to tell your friends, the ones that love to listen to podcasts. Get them to add Daniel Davis Deep Dive to their podcast list. They need to know what you know. They can get it to where they already get their podcast. You just got to tell them.